Welcome to the MordorBBS Podcast. You can visit MordorBBS.com for pop culture news, views and information. Be the first on your blog to simply walk into Mordor. Your hosts for this podcast are Signal and Gameplay Jenny.
Gentlemen in England, now abed, shall think themselves accursed they were not here, and hold their manhoods cheap, whiles any speaks that thought with us upon St. Crispin's Day!
I hate to say this, Rob, but today's episode is going to have to contain something about mobile phones.
Oh, why is that then?
Well, I decided to buy a new one last week. I don't know why. My old one works perfectly well. The battery's a bit dodgy on it, but no, I was walking past the shop and thought, don't buy a new mobile phone. Don't buy a new mobile phone. Don't buy a new... Do you know what I did?
You went home, logged into Skyrim and made a new gameplay video.
No, I bought a new mobile phone.
Okay, what did you get?
Well, I got an orange Sydney, which to most of you will mean nothing at all, but it's a UK carrier's own brand phones, and don't get me wrong, it's quite nice. The problem was that by the time I got home, I didn't have a phone anymore. All I had was a tale of woe.
A tale of woe, this sounds exciting. Please, elucidate.
To cut a very long story short, I moved from pay-as-you-go to contract. They deactivated my pay-as-you-go phone and didn't reactivate the contract phone.
I'll cut out this awkward pause. Carry on.
I thought you were going to say something.
I was listening to your tale of woe.
Would you like to guess how many attempts it took to get the phone actually working as a phone?
Hang on a minute. We need to set this in stone. How many guesses do I get?
1.
Okay. Was it 1?
No, Rob, it wasn't. It was 5. That's 5 separate occasions. To say that I wasn't very happy would be an understatement. I have to say I have been very lightly compensated for this, but as the damn thing still isn't quite working properly, I know how can I put it? Disappointed, that's what I'm looking for, in myself for getting this wound up about mobile phones, given that I never use mine and therefore I don't need a really expensive one, and the one I have does what I need it to do, and yet.
Oh, well, with me, they're like toys. I mean, I love the things. It's just like having a little computer, tiny little laptop in your pocket.
Actually, that's what I don't need. I don't need that. I have a netbook. I don't know why I'm so bothered about it, but I think what's caught me out with this one is I used to be able to text lightning quick, and the software on this is just not quite there. There are more errors than I dare think about when you're trying to use it's like a touch screen, just doesn't quite work for me. And as texting is what I do with it, that's starting to annoy me now.
My father's got a BlackBerry, and I was having a look at his BlackBerry, and I was like, oh, I'd quite like a BlackBerry. But then the keys are so tiny, I have no idea how I text with that, which is why I quite like the idea of the Motorola Flip, even though it's sort of getting on a bit. But the touch screen, even on something like an iPhone, I find it so small. And I have trouble with the iPad one. And the iPad screen the keyboard is actually a reasonably decent size. I just got fat fingers, I guess.
No, I've got the same problem, and I'm tiny.
Well, you should have thought ahead, shouldn't you?
Well, I am now thinking ahead in retrospect. I'm on eBay trying to find another phone, which is awful, because I quite like the phone I've got. It's just I know that that's going to drive me mad.
Can I just sort of hold you up there a second and say... Let's think back a couple of sentences there to when you used the phrase thinking ahead in retrospect.
Yes.
Thinking ahead in retrospect.
I own a time machine.
Okay, because I was going to just continue repeating that until you realised that there was something wrong with it. Because thinking ahead in retrospect means you're thinking now.
I am thinking now, so I'm right.
Couldn't you have just said I'm thinking now about getting a new phone, not thinking ahead in retrospect of getting a new phone?
Yeah, but that wouldn't have wound you up.
I think you will find that the English language will work better for you if you learn to use it properly. I mean, you come from the country that it was invented in, and you're not using it properly, and you're confusing all of our listener.
As normal, then.
Yes. Sorry, Bill. So yeah, down here in sunny New Zealand, Stephen Fry has made a bit of a name for himself. Those of you who are not familiar with Stephen Fry, get familiar with Stephen Fry immediately. I would recommend YouTube. He is the United Kingdom's national treasure. However, he has just come out and basically said that he hates New Zealand. Or he hasn't, and in fact he loves New Zealand, but if you listen to the New Zealand media, he apparently hates New Zealand, simply because he happened to mention that our broadband is a little on the slow side. We live right at the bottom of the planet. The only thing we've got next to us is Australia, and that'd be a drain on anybody's resources. So you can imagine that our broadband connections aren't fantastic, and it seemed reasonable to me that Stephen Fry, who is a big techno geek, would have a little bit of an issue using broadband in New Zealand when he's used to the lightning speeds of the United Kingdom. I have absolutely no idea why this became such a national day of mourning, as it were. The New Zealand media really came down opposed to Stephen Fry. It just made no sense.
This whole thing bothers me, because for starters, who was he telling? Did he say to a journalist, your Wi-Fi is crap? If he did, does it matter? Why did he even mention it in the first place? Or did some journalist overhear him talking in a cafe to somebody and blow it into a massive news story?
He happened to tweet, I haven't got it in front of me, so I don't know the exact words, but it was something along the lines of, New Zealand's broadband is a little bit lacking and you guys should band together and do something about it, which to me makes absolutely perfect sense, and I agree with him entirely. But yeah, somebody in the New Zealand media who is obviously following him has decided, hey, this is big news, and it's since nothing ever happens in New Zealand, let's face it, other than earthquakes and mining disasters, they decided to run with it since there aren't any earthquakes or mining disasters going on at the moment.
That must have been a very slow news day.
Mr. Stephen Fry is considered to be big news in New Zealand, as he's down here working on The Hobbit at the moment, the new Peter Jackson movie. So I guess that's why he came to the forefront.
Well, speaking of Stephen Fry, Fry obviously rhymes with sky, and sky is the first part of the word Skyrim.
That has got to be the worst segue from one piece to another in the entire history of podcasting.
Oh, in that case, I shall claim that award.
See, I would have claimed that award, but then I took an arrow in the knee. See what I did there?
Ha ha.
But yes, Skyrim. I got Skyrim 2 days ago, and I've been playing it pretty solidly. I think I've played it for about 12 hours in 2 days, which is a pretty good run. And yeah, I'm absolutely loving it. I was expecting it to be Oblivion with slightly better graphics, but it's completely blown me away.
Can't be all you've got to say about it. That can't be all you've got to say about it. I was actually settling in to have lunch, waiting for you to finish talking about it.
I guess if you cut to the chase, it's just more accessible than Oblivion. In Oblivion, I felt that taking a wander across the landscape was a bit of a chore. It held my interest at first, but aimlessly wandering got old very quickly. In Skyrim, every corner you turn, there's a wow factor, and none of the things that annoyed the hell out of me in Oblivion are rearing their heads at the moment. There's just so much detail in everything. I love the fact that collecting butterflies is actually a career option. I'm sure I'll find things that piss me off. The game's turned me into a bit of a compulsive quicksaver, but my first dungeon romp was just epic. My first long-distance trip across the country was great fun, and I'm loving the leveling and perk system. Graphically, it's jaw-dropping. I'm sure there are games that'll look prettier, but they'd be quite few and far between and on a much smaller scale. I just love how Skyrim has seamlessly managed to take the pretty graphics and spread them across the whole game world. They must have had a huge team of designers working on the world.
I think the thing that works in Skyrim with that is that because there are mountains involved, it's always going to be amazing. Whereas in Oblivion, it was different areas relied on different things. But if you look up in Skyrim, there's always an amazing mountain there.
I suppose it also neatly sidesteps the whole issue of what do you do with your horizon, which has always been a bit of a weak spot in these 3D games. Interestingly, when I first started the game, it told me that I only barely qualified for minimum settings, which disappointed and worried me.
Really? You've got a better computer than I have.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. I didn't understand it, but I was playing it and I was thinking, well, it's actually running like a dream, so I could probably tweak these graphics up a little bit. And I kept tweaking and kept tweaking and kept tweaking, and now everything except anti-aliasing is on maximum, and the frame rate is quite acceptable, so I'm quite happy. So I don't know why it said that, possibly something to do with an old driver I was running. A little bit disappointed in the audio, I'd have to admit. After the musical excellence of Morrowind, for example, which was just as good as it gets, the music sort of ho-hum. The other sound effects, I found the thumps and clangs of the weapons during combat were rather good, very visceral. The ambient sounds are spot on. But yeah, the music was just a bit drab. I was quite disappointed.
I bought the box set album signed by the composer. And yeah, you're right. The music for Morrowind and Oblivion is amazing. And just amazing orchestrally. It's fantastic. And as you know, I'm not really into like massive epic music. But I haven't found the Elder Scrolls to be like that.
No, I think Morrowind is probably the closest that they've come. I think if you and let's face it, in the podcast there is Morrowind music interspersed on just about every single one that we run, just because I love it so much. I don't know, Skyrim, it's nice, it's serviceable, but it just doesn't hold up compared to the other games at all. But gameplay-wise, so far, and as I say, I'm only a few hours into it, it does seem to be a fairly pleasing balance between linear storyline and sandbox, which is nice. I'm in no hurry to complete the storyline. I mean, I've killed a dragon, or 2 dragons, I think, and learned a new magic word and mini games.
Abracadabra.
Fasroda, I think it was. But for many games, that'd be the whole story right there. I'm enjoying it utterly. And if you haven't got Skyrim and you've got a machine that'll run it, get Skyrim immediately. The accents in Skyrim, like you have one person who sounds like he's Swedish and the next person who speaks is obviously from America.
Yeah, it is a bit silly. They could not stand to have the whole of the voices like this.
Yeah, I must admit that would probably have pissed me off a little bit. Well, I can't help but think that the reason your gameplay videos are so popular is because people think you're an escapee from Wallace and Gromit. Hey, yo, Chuck.
That's not my normal accent, you swine. Somebody asked me if I was Australian this morning.
You're kidding.
No. Are you Australian or British? What?
Yes.
My it's been very, very since December. Very, very
Yes.
unusually so. And yes, it turns out that's because my managed to leave a in the open, and it's inside the and we had to have a that just constantly for a week. But do me a favour and don't put that in.
Okay. Oh, I'm knackered. Are you knackered?
Yes.
Right, let's call it a night. See you all.
Thank you for listening to the MordorBBS podcast. Don't forget that you can visit us online at MordorBBS.com.